Welcome back to Stories from the Stead with your host, Alan Bishop, the head alchemist at Birdseye, Indiana's own Old Homestead Distilling Company. Recently, I've been going back through some of the old Stories from the Stead videos that we shared with you about a year ago. It's been quite a while since I've done one of these. I was compiling them into audio files and audio clips for a new episode of If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything. As not all the audiences between social media, YouTube, and If You Have Ghosts are crossover audiences, so I wanted to share it with some more people that may not have had a chance to listen to these stories in the past. But while doing as such, I started doing some research for some new stories from the Stead, because I thought I might make an extra bonus story specific to If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything. However, I also thought that I owed it to you, the audience on social media who I first shared stories from the Stead with, to give you first dibs at new stories for Stories from the Stead. So I picked out a special one today. And as always, before we get started on our story, please be sure to check out thealchemistcabinet.com, but also oldhomesteaddc.com. As the Black Forest of Southern Indiana's only alchemist, and as the Black Forest of Southern Indiana's only distilling historian that I am aware of, I always feel like it is my responsibility to rattle these old bones and bring up the stories of long ago, as they inspire me as a distiller at Old Homestead Distilling Company, and they also tell the stories of our ancestors. Now, today's story is pretty special, and it happens just outside the Black Forest in nearby Jackson County, Indiana. It is a two-part story, because I have to tell the story of the father in order to tell you the story of the son, as the two of them are obviously familially related, but also related in content and substance in my belief. And you'll see what I'm talking about as I go, because the second article about the son is a little bit speculative, but I think we can get a pretty good idea of what probably happened with this story by learning about the father. So article number 1, which you too can find at findagrave.com. From the Columbus Republic, 11th of July, 1999, the Angel of Angel Hill 15-foot marble monument has created lasting impressions in Valonia, Indiana by Britt Kennerly, who we thank very much for this information. Valonia, surrounded by soybeans in a field off South Indiana 135, the sweet-faced stone angel stands, back to the road and oblivious to the passing of time and cars. The monument, long called the Angel on Angel Hill, faces northeast in Smith Cemetery, spreading her wings as she looms over the eternal resting places of wealthy businessman Henry G. Smith, his wife Eliza, and several members of the Smith and Hunsucker families. The Angel, a 15-plus foot French marble monument placed after Henry G. Smith's death in 1887, stands vigil over a cemetery that's just south of Valonia. In the center of a field owned by Lon and Cheryl Stuckwish of Valonia, a narrow path leads through the field to the Angel and the cemetery, one of 15 known cemeteries in Driftwood Township and 210 in Jackson County total. The tiny graveyard, surrounded by iron fencing, contains at least 35 grave sites. The Angel watches over them from atop a pedestal, clutching a flower in her right hand and a bag of flowers in her left. The Angel has long been a conversation piece and historical marker in this town of 592 people, and she's the stuff of great speculation too, most of which can't be tracked for accuracy without talking to Driftwood Township historian Edna Mae Smith, who's 73 and no relation to Henry G. Smith, and Bill Hunsucker, who tends the cemetery and is Henry G. Smith's great-great-great-grandson. For example, although it's never been proved, a quarter is said to be buried in the Angel's hand as a testament to Smith's love of money. Jackson Countyan Laura Payne, 91 years of age, said she heard the quarter story from her father, Henry Schaefer, as a child. They said Mr. Smith loved money so well that he had a washpan full of coins, she said. They said he would lay in bed and run his hands through the coins, and that's the reason they took the coin and buried it in the Angel's hands. Edna Smith doesn't disagree, though she's never actually seen the coin. It's supposed to be a coin in there, Smith said. Hunsucker scoffs at the thought. That's just an old story, he said. It's not true. Other old stories, though, are accurate and fascinating. Henry G. Smith, originally from Louisville, Kentucky, was born June 9th of 1813 and came to Jackson County in the 1840s. He and his father didn't get along well, and he came here as a farmhand and a sharecropper, said Hunsucker, whose great-great-grandfather was Charnel Hunsucker, husband of Henry G. Smith's daughter Julia. One day, a lawyer from Valonia rode up on a horse and announced that Smith's father had died and bequeathed his son $40,000. So Henry started buying a lot of land, Hunsucker said. He married Eliza Settles, a wealthy woman at the time. They were farming about 1,500 acres in Driftwood Township. He also owned a bank at one time. He didn't have much mercy on the people who didn't pay back money. Edna Mae Smith loves the story of the angel, which she first heard from one of Henry Smith's daughters, Beldora Smith Burrell. Burrell, who was born in 1853 and died in 1934, and is buried in Valonia Cemetery. In the early 1930s, Burrell gave a very young Smith the story of the angel. Smith and her grandmother, Viola Wascombe, lived next door to Miss Burrell on Valonia's Main Street. Miss Burrell, Smith said, was a very demanding woman who used to sit on her front porch dressed completely in white. We were very poor, and my grandmother cleaned and washed for Miss Burrell, Smith said. She baked bread for her every Friday. The way the story goes, after Smith's death, Burrell wanted a proper monument to her father, deciding on one that was shipped from Paris to New York. The angel came by train to Seymour, Indiana. Burrell hired teamsters to tote the monument to Valonia. Burrell's flowery description of her father's monument said that she prepared a log wagon and, with 4 highly trained draft animals, took it to the graveyard and placed it on the pedestal, as though to remain there while stars their vigil keep. Of the angel, Burrell wrote, "The angel's face has a look of sweetness and beauty, as it gazes serenely toward Valonia, as though the brooding spirit of the sleeping man below still watches and guards the town which he loved in his life." Hunsucker, 40, does his share of guarding too. A farmer, Sylvania employee, and history lover, he started caring for the property for which the family owns the right of way in 1982. When I first went in, there were trees that were 6 and 8 inches in diameter around the tombstones, he said. You couldn't see anything but the top of the angel. I said, something's got to be done about this. It just wasn't fair to the people buried there. Hunsucker cut all the overgrowth down, dug out roots, and planted bluegrass, which now blazes with color. And he slightly elevated the tiny tombstones of infants, many of which were covered up and sinking into the ground. They needed to be seen, Hunsucker said. They are, along with the French marble angel that draws tourists and locals, and those just curious about an angel surrounded by soybeans. Whenever I'm up there mowing, I'll get the car after car of people stopping to ask me about it, Hunsucker said. He doesn't consider himself noble for preserving the angel's surroundings. He considers the past and the lives of those before him sacred. I just want to make it look nice, he said. It's family, and I'm part of the family. So many of you familiar with southern Indiana, specifically with driving from Washington County, Indiana into Jackson County, Indiana, into Driftwood Township, may have seen this angel from the highway in the past and wondered about its story, and hopefully the newspaper article I just read to you shines some light on that particular story. One thing is clear, Henry G. Smith loved his money, and it's not just this article about the angel that verifies that, but many things that were written about the man in the history books. Obviously, he inherited well, and he married well, and he tried to hold on to as much money as what he could. So the story of the coin in the angel's hand would not surprise me. Another little bit of symbology or more folk tradition is represented with the angel as well, and that is that the flower is being held in the right hand while the bag of flowers is held in the left hand. And the rationale behind this is because way back when, self-hygiene was taken care of with your left hand, if you understand what I'm saying. And so it would be considered unhygienic to hold anything in your left hand or to gather anything in your left hand, be it botanicals, produce, flowers, etc., that would be offered to someone else. That was always gathered with the right hands, and the basket and or the container that it was going to be placed in was held by the left hand. All that being said, let's look at this other article that I found some years ago at the Stevens Museum in Salem, Indiana, in their newspaper archive. Quite by accident, I believe that this comes originally from the Salem Democrat in 1920. Last Sunday morning, as Everett Spangler and Albert Hamilton of North Brown Township were walking over the old Wilcox farm, recently purchased by John S. Spangler, something white was discovered sticking out of the sand on a hillside. This is in Washington County, by the way. A closer inspection revealed a skull which apparently is still attached to the frame and which was buried many years ago. The sand, slowly washing away and helped by stock roaming up and down the hill, finally exposed the skull, which was in a good state of preservation. A close examination revealed that the skull retained 12 teeth, all in good shape, and 2 teeth were found below the head which had recently dropped out. Years ago, a still house was operated near the place of the find by Hiram Wilcox, then owner of the land. And as it was the meeting place of a rough element, the supposition is that someone about 60 years ago, when the still was in full blast, met with foul play and was buried in the sand. It is also being recalled that about that time a young man named Charlie Smith, who was a son of Henry G. Smith of Livonia, and spoken of as the richest man of Jackson County, disappeared. Of course, the linking of the skeleton with young Smith is merely supposition, and will never be proven, as no one at this late date is likely to remember enough about him to connect him with the skeleton. So one thing is clear, this particular son who went missing is not buried in that cemetery. Now what happened to the skeleton that was discovered, I don't know. I don't know how it would have ever been identified. But I think we can all speculate a few good reasons why this son of the richest man in Jackson County may have been killed in Washington County at a distillery. Either a robbery gone wrong, or perhaps a kidnapping in order to hold the father to pay some sum for the release of his son. Or maybe this young man growing up in a family of privileged people got a little mouthy at the still sites. And nonetheless, while I know that this is all just sort of supposition and all only tangentially related to the art of distillation, which we love so much at Old Homestead Distillery, it is still one of those enduring stories of the heritage of the Black Forest of Southern Indiana, a heritage that I'm proud to be a part of. While at Old Homestead, we push boundaries while preserving tradition. From our hearths and hearts to yours.